The Philippines is a beautiful, astonishing, amazing country with a rich cultural background and unique vistas that you should visit. Before doing that, you should know a few amazing things about the country. Starting with the year 30,000 BC, ancestors of the Negritos, the first inhabitants of the Philippines, settled on the islands. We go forward in time to 1543. Ruy Lopez de Villalobos names the eastern Visayas Filipinas in honor of the future King Philip II of Spain, and the name is later applied to the entire archipelago. 1563, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi establishes a Spanish colony on the island of Cebu. 1571, Legazpi founds Manila, that will later become the capital. 1762, the British occupy Manila after the Spanish defeat in the 7 Years' War in Europe. 1898, the United States declares war against Spain to end Spanish rule in Cuba and the Philippines. Spain cedes the Philippines to the US for $20 million. Emilio Aguinaldo declares Filipino independence, but the US establishes a military government in Manila. 1935, the 10-year Commonwealth era begins. General Douglas MacArthur arrives as military advisor to the Philippine Army. 1942, Manila falls to the Japanese. General MacArthur retreats to Australia. Captured US soldiers are forced on the Bataan Death March to concentration camp in Tarlac. 1944, US military forces led by General MacArthur return and the Philippine Commonwealth is reestablished. 1946, United States grants the Philippines political independence and Manuel Rosas becomes the first president of the sovereign Philippines. This is the country's history in short. Despite all the plotting and fighting, Philippines was and is an interesting country. The Taal volcano on the Philippine island of Luzon is one of the world's 17-decade volcanoes, which are volcanoes being specially monitored given their active state and explosive history. Taal is also located in a lake, which has another lake inside of it, with an even smaller island inside of that lake. The Philippines was the first country in Southeast Asia to gain independence after World War II in 1945. The Philippines also has the highest rate of discovery of new animal species, with 16 new species of mammals discovered just in the last 10 years. The world's biggest pair of shoes was made in Marikina City, Philippines in 2002. The wingtips measured about 17.4 feet or around 5 meters in length, 7.9 feet or 2.4 meters in width, and almost 6.6 feet, 2 meters in height. The country's official name is the Republic of the Philippines. The world record for most women breastfeeding simultaneously was 3,541, set in Manila, Philippines on May the 4th, 2006. Of the top 10 largest shopping malls in the world, there are 3 found here: SM Megamall, SM North Edsa, and SM Mall of Asia. The world's largest pearl was discovered by a Filipino diver in the Palawan Sea in 1934, known as the Pearl of Lao Tzu or Pearl of La. The gem weighs 14 pounds, almost 6.5 kilos, and measures 9.5 inches, 24 centimeters long, and 5.5 inches, 4 centimeters in diameter. It has a value of over $40 million, and it's believed to be 600 years old. The Philippines is the world's largest exporter of coconuts and tropical fruits such as mangosteen and papaya. The burial of Ferdinand Marcos, the 10th president of the Philippines, took place on November the 18th, 2016 at Libang, Bayani. Even though the first elected Filipino president, Ferdinand Marcos, has been dead for almost 2 decades, his body has never been properly buried. It remained on ice while officials quibbled about whether he should be buried in cemetery reserved for Filipino heroes and past presidents. That happened for a reason. Ferdinand Marcos wasn't their best president. He even had to flee the country after a coup d'etat. Some Filipinos are wary of the number 13 and will avoid having 13 people at a table. Also, steps to the main entrance of a house should not follow a number divisible by 3. Superstitious Filipino will not travel or bathe on Holy Thursday or Good Friday during Holy Week, the week before Easter. The only place in the world where skunks are found other than America is Indonesia and the Philippines, where they are called sting badgers. Christian names in the Philippines include Bing, Bong, Bambi, Girly, Boogie, Peanut, and Boom Boom. The Philippines is the only majority Christian nation in Asia. 80% of its population identifies as Roman Catholic. The country has a population of more than 100 million people, which makes it the 12th most populous country in the world. Its annual growth rate is around 2%, making it one of the fastest growing countries in the world. Mount Pinatubo on the Philippine island of Luzon erupted on June 15, 1991. It created the largest mushroom cloud in the world. Its eruption ejected 10 billion metric tons of magma and 20 million tons of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. The Philippine, or monkey-eating eagle, is the largest of all eagles and was declared the national bird of the Philippines in 1985. It stands up to 3.3 feet, 1 meter in height, and has a wingspan of almost 7 feet or 2 meters. It's critically endangered. There may be only around 180 to 500 eagles remaining. Killing one is punishable by Philippine law by 12 years in jail and a heavy fine. According to Filipino custom, it's considered rude to open gifts immediately after they are given. The Philippines is the only country in the world whose flag is hoisted upside down when the country is at war. The Conus gloriamus, the rarest and most expensive seashell in the world, is one of the 12,000 species of seashells found in the Philippines. The first examples of these shells sold at an auction for about 5 grand. The yo-yo had its beginning as an ancient Filipino studded hunting weapon attached to a 20-foot or 7 meters rope. The modern yo-yo was invented by a Filipino American, and its name yo-yo comes from Filipino language yakano and means come back. The Philippines is home to the world's largest snake, the reticulated python, which also happens to be the world's longest reptile. It can grow up to 9 meters or 29 feet. There are between 120 and 175 individual languages spoken in the Philippines, 171 of which are living, while the other 4 no longer have any known speakers. English and Filipino, based on Tagalog, are the country's 2 official recognized languages. The Philippines is the world's largest supplier of nurses, supplying roughly 20% of all overseas nurses worldwide. The antibiotic erythromycin was invented by Filipino doctor Abelardo Aguilar in 1949. He sent a sample to his employer, the Eli Lilly pharmaceutical company, which promptly patented. Erythromycin is used for people who are allergic to penicillin and has saved millions of lives. The Puerto Princesa subterranean river in Palawan, Philippines, is 5 miles or 8 kilometers long. Until the discovery of a 6-mile, 10 kilometers underground river in Mexico, the Puerto Princesa River was known as the longest subterranean waterway in the world. The Philippines is the second largest archipelago in the world and is made up of 7,107 islands located in the South China Sea, Philippine Sea, Sulu Sea, Celebes Sea, and the Luzon Strait. San Fernando, Philippines, is known as the Christmas capital of the Philippines. It's most famous for its paroles, giant Christmas lanterns, which symbolize the Star of Bethlehem and can rise 20 feet or 6 to 7 meters in the air. Only about 10 giant paroles are produced each year to compete in the Liglian Perul Giant Lantern Festival, and that's with the reason each parole costs around $11,000 to $15,000 to build. A Filipino man named Roberto del Rosario patented the first working karaoke machine in 1975, calling it the sing-along system. The Japanese later translated its name to karaoke, which means singing without accompaniment. In the Philippine island province of Camiguin, there are more volcanoes, 7 in number, than towns, 5 in number. There hasn't been an eruption since the mid-1950s, but the island has the most number of volcanoes per square kilometer in the world. The University of Santo Tomas was founded in Manila, Philippines by Dominican monks in 1611. It's the world's largest Catholic university in terms of population. Both it and the University of San Carlos in Cebu City, founded in 1595, are older than Harvard University, which was not founded until 1636. Jellyfish Lake is around 12,000 years old and contains, in Philippines, more than 30 million jellyfish. Over 11 million Filipinos work overseas, which constitutes about 11% of the entire population of the Philippines. Filipinos are the second largest Asian American group in the United States, next to the Chinese. The Mindanao Trench, which is near the Philippines in the Pacific Ocean, is the second deepest spot under the world's ocean at 6.5 miles or 34,440 feet or 10,497 meters. It was first explored by the German ship Emden in 1927. Filipinos have the world's longest Christmas season. It begins with the playing of carols in September and officially ends in January with the Feast of the Three Kings. As part of the festivities, they celebrate Simbang Gabi or Night Mass, where Catholics attend 9 services in a row leading up to Christmas Eve. If a person attends all 9 masses, it's said their wish will be granted. Filipinos' Christmas feasts are called Noche Buena and compared to America's Thanksgiving. Filipino-American Eleanor Connie Concepcion Mariano was the first Filipino-American male or female to become a rear admiral. She was also the first woman in the military to become the White House physician. War journalist Carlos Peña Romulo was the first Asian Filipino to win the American Pulitzer Prize for correspondence in 1942. He was also the first Asian to become president of the United Nations. The Philippine capital city of Manila was named after the white-flowered mangrove plant, the nilad, or Scyphiphora hydrophyllaceae. It's a tree with white star-shaped flowers but yields dark blue dye, which is why in other countries it's called the indigo tree. Manila, the capital of the Philippines, is considered the world's most densely populated city in the world, with a population of 1.6 million people and an area of just 24 square miles or 40 square kilometers. It has a population density of 55,000 people per square mile or 43,000 people per square kilometer. The Philippines is home to the world's smallest hoofed animal, the Philippine mouse deer, locally known as the pilandok, Tragulus nigricans. This creature stands about 15 inches or 40 centimeters tall at the shoulder level. One of the most interesting and traditional Philippine dishes is balut, which is essentially a boiled fertilized duck egg with a half-formed chick inside. It's said to be an aphrodisiac. Other unique dishes include camaro, which are field crickets cooked in a soy sauce, vinegar and sugar, papitan, which is a goat or cow innards stew flavored with bile. There's also a soup made out of bull testicles. The Philippines experienced one large magnitude earthquake, 7.7 on the Richter scale, every 10 years, 7 earthquakes of major magnitude 7 to 7.4 every 10 years, and 5 earthquakes of moderate magnitude 6 to 7 every year. The Philippines is the world's second biggest geothermal producer after the United States, with 18% of the country's electricity needs being met by geothermal power. After Ferdinand Marcos, the 10th president of the Philippines from 1965 to 1986, a kleptocrat politician and lawyer, and his wife Imelda fled the Malacanang Palace, she famously left behind 15 mink coats, 508 gowns, 1,000 handbags and 1,060 pairs of shoes, from a collection rumored to contain around 3,000 pairs of shoes. Bruno Mars' mother immigrated from the Philippines to Hawaii as a child. Pop singer Bruno Mars is half Filipino and half Puerto Rican. His childhood nickname was Little Elvis. His real name is Peter Jean Bayot Hernandez. His stage name was inspired by the chubby wrestler Bruno Sammartino. The jeepney is sometimes referred to as the king of the Philippine roads. It's a descendant of the jeeps American troops drove in the Philippines during World War II. We now have second and third generation jeepneys with air conditioning units that closely resemble minibuses. They can carry up to 16 passengers. In the rural Philippines, most women give birth at home and then have the baby's placenta buried beneath the house, often with an object symbolizing what the parents hope the child will grow up to become. In the cities, the practice is prohibited by the health authorities. San Telmo or Santo Elmo is a fireball seen by dozens of Filipinos, especially those who live in the Sierra Madre Mountains. It was scientifically explained as electrical fields that have diverged from the power lines. However, sightings have been reported since the Spanish era, 16th to 19th centuries. There have also been similar sightings in the Alps and Himalayas. Basketball is the most popular sport in the Philippines. The Philippines Basketball Association, PBS, is the first and oldest league in Asia and the second oldest in the world after the United States National Basketball Association, NBA. The Philippines is considered the tax capital of the world. Every day, Filipinos send more SMS messages than Europe and the US combined. The Filipino national dish may very well be the adobo, which is a dark stew of chicken and or pork cooked in soy sauce, vinegar, crushed garlic, bay leaf, and black peppercorns. In Spanish, adobo originally meant sauce or seasoning. That's all for today. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe. I'd like to thank the 3 persons that subscribe to this channel. We are growing slowly but surely. I'm Alex, and until next time, beware of the falling apples.